So what I did here first is lay the cushion down on the fabric with the fabric inside out and fold it over to kind of make a pillowcase. And then I sewed a seam right down the center. And then I put the cushion inside out, and then I pinned the cushion into the shape of, I pinned the fabric into the shape of the cushion, and I just made some like gussets here at the top because it's kind of a rounded shape patio cushion, and that kind of helped make the pattern that I was going to be sewing together. So, super crude, but it gets the job done. Now here what I did was just kind of outlined my sew line with a pencil, just following the pins. I left 1 inch here at the bottom, and now what I'm doing is I am removing the pins so I could pull the cushion out. It's a little hard to do with one hand, so I'm holding the camera in the other. All right, so we're gonna pull the cushion out. We've traced out the sew line at the top, rounded edge. We're gonna pull the cushion out, and it was at the bottom where we had our 1 inch seam allowance. Okay, and the next I'm gonna take my clear ruler and I'm gonna mark out 1 inch from that sew line and cut the excess fabric out. And then you're gonna see that coming up right here. So that's my sew line that I traced out. Then grab my ruler and mark out that 1 inch seam allowance. I left myself extra because I'd rather have too much than too little. Yeah. Okay, and then we're going to cut away the excess. There we are. Take it over to the sewing machine, and then we are going to sew up that seam, and using that pencil line as, sort of a guide. So this is the top edge of the cushion, which has more of a rounded edge. So I'm sewing that seam up first, and then we'll handle the bottom because we're going to close the bottom seam a little bit differently, and I'll show that to you. You'll see that coming up in a little bit. So here we're just finishing up sewing that top rounded seam. And then when we get to the end, once the seam is sewed all the way up, you're going to clip the corners just so that when you press your seam out, they lay a little bit nicer. You see that here? We're going to clip that so that the seam opens all of the way, because when we take it over to the iron, you're going to want that seam to lay flat. It'll just give it a nicer cleaner look. So see there, just snipping that extra seam allowance there, clipping it allows us to open up the seam all the way without having that excess bulk there. So you'll get a nice clean edge once we take it over to the iron. So what I like to usually do is press the seam flat first, and that's just so that you can steam out the thread and give it a little bit more stretch. And then I like to go back and then press open the seam. And then when you press open the seam, you'll get a nice, sharp, crisp sew line or seam. Okay, now we're taking it back over to the cushion, stuffing the cushion back in. Now we have our top edge sewn up, and now we're going to handle the bottom. So what we're going to do here, I like to start in the middle and work my way out to each corner when I'm pinning, especially with a stripe or any sort of pattern. You want to make sure everything lines up nicely so your cushion cover isn't like skewed to one end. So I'm just pinning the seam closed, and again just like folding in and gusseting the sides so that everything has a nice tight fit. So we've got our cushion tucked in there nicely like a little present. Got it all pinned up. We have a 1-inch seam allowance there. Now I'm tracing out the sew line again with pencil just so I have a little bit of a guide. Now I'm removing the center pins because when I go to the sewing machine, I'm only going to sew from corner to part way towards the middle because I want to be able to leave a little bit of a space to be able to stuff the cushion back in. So see, I'm sewing in, I'm leaving myself about, a good amount of space to be able to remove the cushion once I sew up that seam. So I'm going from one corner to part way towards the center, and then I'm stopping, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other end. From one corner, oh there you go, and I'm clipping that seam allowance there again just so I can open up my seam, get it nice and pressed out. And again here from part way in the middle towards the other corner, okay? Because I need to leave myself a little pocket so I could stuff the cushion back in once the cover is turned right side out, okay? So I stuffed the cushion back in, and now I'm gonna finish sewing up that remaining part that we left open to completely seal the cushion inside the cushion cover. Now I could have probably added some sort of closure so I could remove the cushion, whenever I wanted to, but I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to seal them in there permanently. But that's also another option. You could have closed it with buttons or zipper, Velcro, or any sort of other closure. Now here I'm just adding a little fun to my patio umbrella. So I purchased a patio umbrella from Amazon, and it was black and white striped to match my new patio cushions. But I felt like it needed a little something else, so I decided to add little pom-pom tassels to the edge just to give it a little extra jazz. But what I realized is, so I purchased the black pom-pom tassels, and I'm glad I checked because what I did was I kind of measured, I took the tassels and went around the whole umbrella or the edge of the umbrella, and I realized that I was just going to be about a yard or so short of having enough to cover the entire perimeter of the umbrella. But luckily enough, I did have some white pom-pom tassels just laying around, left over from a different project. So what I decided to do was kind of alternate the two so I could have enough to go around the entire umbrella. And it turned out fine. I didn't want to wait. I wanted to enjoy my new patio set right away, so I just decided to do that as sort of a last minute solution. So each panel has alternating black and white tassel trim, and it looks fine because the entire umbrella is that color scheme. So it's a little funky, but it works. So I just nothing major here. I just pinned a a section of black tassels, cut where the seam line was, and then started a section of white tassels. And I did that until I got around the entire perimeter of the umbrella, and that's it. Super easy, super quick. Once this tassel, I mean, you know, because after some time I imagine it's going to start to look a little weathered. I plan on replacing it when the time comes with probably like a longer braided tassel. Just, you know, with everything that's been going on, there hasn't been a large supply of, you know, availability has been a little scarce with things. So I just made do with what I could find, and for now it works. But I think in the future I'd like to replace it with something that's a little bit longer. And I think I'd probably do all black all the way around, just because I feel like white would probably show a little bit more wear and tear and pick up dirt, especially from being outside. So all in all, it was a pretty simple project. I was able to do all of the patio cushions, which included 2 chairs, a love seat, and 4 back cushions, along with the trim on the umbrella in one weekend. So, you know, if you've got a weekend free and you've got a patio set that, you know, shows a little bit more wear and tear, this is you know, a pretty simple way to spruce things up and get a new look, and you know, basically have a patio refresh without spending a lot of time. And there you have it. Here was what we started with before, some old worn ripped cushions, and now we breathed some new life back into them, and we have the look of a brand new set. So we'll be able to enjoy them for many more seasons to come. Thanks so much for watching, and if you liked what you saw, please go ahead and like and hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much. See you guys soon.